Hey everyone, Tech here. Welcome to Tech's Tavern. Grab a brew, pull up a chair, and let's do an update to our tutorial series on Crusader Kings 2. And this will effectively be episode 8 on my tutorial series, which the original 7 episodes that maybe has brought many of you to subscribe to my channel possibly, were originally recorded just days after the actual retail release of the game. So I've had a lot of people ask a lot of questions, and first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for the great compliments and thank yous and things like that, for saying that the series helped them to be able to break through the barrier to be able to learn to play the game. My initial purpose for creating those videos were not to necessarily make anybody a pro on Crusader Kings 2, but it was really geared towards people who've always kind of looked from the outside in on paradox strategy games and been a little intimidated or not able to really get into the mechanics and understand what they're doing. And my hope was with this series was that in a relatively short amount of time, if you look at the time of those episodes were around 15 minutes a piece or so, I believe, is that in a relatively short amount of time I could get anyone where they could get into the game and at least understand the basics and start having a good time and then learn as they went. And that was really the goal of that initial 7 episodes. This episode here will not be very long. The main purpose of this episode is to just touch on a few questions that I hear a lot, touch on a few of the changes that have happened from those initial episodes to now, which this particular episode is being recorded in February of 2013. So there's been several expansions and DLCs and all kinds of things, and one thing that you'll notice if you've just recently gotten the game, and who knows, maybe you're watching this video in 2015 or something, and if you watch through the first 7 episodes, you'll say that a lot of things, buttons aren't in the same place and things like that. Well, they've changed things a little bit through the course of adding DLC. A lot of that has to do with them tweaking the engine for upcoming games like March of the Eagles that just came out, and then of course Europa Universalis 4, which is just around the corner from the time of this recording. So a few things I want to touch on is, number one is that some of the buttons have changed. If you watch the original tutorial episodes, the first 7, you'll notice that these buttons up here on the top are not the same buttons as they are now. They've moved a few things around, consolidated some things, but hopefully most of you should be able to figure it out. Like, one thing in particular I know in the episodes is I used to click on the characters button up here. Well, what they did is they took it from the top left and they moved it down here. So the characters button is down here on the bottom now. They put a few different ones down here. A fine title, go to home province, your ledger, things like that are all down here, but the Find Characters button got moved down here. They also changed the way some of the filters work for the map. They actually made it where you can select the filters that you want into these buttons. So you can actually take, and if you click this little plus and minus button here, it shows you like all of the different filters, and then you can hotkey the ones that you seem to use the most down into these 5 buttons if you want, and then close this. So it gets you a little bit of screen real estate back for the most part. I mean, generally I go with the Independent Realms one because it gives me a clean picture here. The de jure duchies helps you to figure out duchy titles and things like that. Your kingdoms, as you can see here in this particular, this is a save from my current LP, which, if you are watching the tutorial series, feel free, and I'll put a link on this video, to go over and check out my LP series, which is over 90 episodes now, and of me playing Croatia. And I actually start off with a small duke, Duke Dimitar of Slavonia down here. I believe I started eventually with, initially I think I started with just like 2 counties, I think like Krisavek and Rama or something to that effect, or maybe it was 3, maybe I had Hum as well. But eventually took over Croatia, then took over Hungary, and then as you can see here, I actually have some counties within Serbia and Bulgaria. So actually my king right now, he is actually the king of Croatia and king of Hungary. We were the king of Serbia, but I destroyed that title because I was tired of trying to keep 3 titles. So that's a long story. You'll have to watch the LP. But the LP I think is very, very entertaining. I did a lot of things to make it interesting, and it's geared more towards telling a dynasty story of my kings and their heirs and things like that. And I spiced the series up with some cool little video clips here and there from some movies and stuff to make it interesting. So if you watch the series, you'll catch some of those kind of cool little Easter eggs that I put in there. Getting back to the tutorial here again, though, several other things have changed since that initial video, and I'll just kind of go through some of the buttons up here. The council button is generally the same. One thing that they have changed is there's these buttons here that allow you to designate whether your council members can lead armies or not. Originally, the game they would basically, grab any of them. Now you can actually say, I do not want my chancellor leading armies. And so, that, as you can see here, I have all of my guys forbidden from leading armies except for my marshal right now. And that's usually a pretty good way of handling it for the most part, because you really are going to have other things for everybody else to do. So, the laws screen, I believe they changed it a little bit, but it's pretty close to how it was originally, so not much of that has changed. The technology is pretty much the same as well. I think military is almost exactly the same. The intrigue and plots and all that, I know that changed at one point. The plots thing, I think it used to be on its own, and then they kind of mixed some of the plot stuff kind of got mixed together, so I'm not really sure how this was. I can't really recall, to be honest, but they did change this a little bit. The factions thing, this is a new thing that was added with one of the DLCs. I'm not really sure which one, but in particular what the factions thing is basically something else for you to worry about. It's showing you, it's kind of giving you inside knowledge, which is really quite interesting, because it has some definite roots and realism that it adds to the game, to where you as the king, you kind of get some insight on upcoming problems. So you can kind of look here and you can see, hey, this Duke Cornel the First of Ducla is my nephew, and he seems to be causing some problems because, number one, he's got one faction going for lower crown authority in Croatia, and then he has another one for independence. So this guy is really causing some problems. We have a couple other ones here as well, but these ones I'm not quite as worried about, because these people have good opinion of me. This guy has a little bit of a bad opinion, which is something else I'll discuss here in just a second to kind of end the video off. But this is it's just something else you have to deal with. Is usually you have to try to address these people, see what their issues are, try to get them where they don't have a low opinion of you, and you really just kind of have to watch out for it, because it's kind of the first warning signs of possible revolts and rebellions and things like that. The religion tab is pretty much the same. I think they changed some of the icons and all, but it's pretty close to what it was originally. So, but like I said, the main thing I wanted to touch on this video is a lot of people say, hey, well, some of the buttons aren't in the same place. In particular, that character one seems to throw a lot of people for a loop, because I know in my original videos I showed how I would go in here and search for people of a certain trait and things like that. So, but most of this other stuff, the mini-map maybe they changed and they moved a few buttons around. Now, a couple other small tips I just want to cover is one big thing, and I probably didn't cover this very much in the original tutorial episodes, but one thing with the way I play the game, and everybody has their own styles, and I play the game more as a story than trying to play it as a tactical optimization of complete and total victory. I play it more as a story to kind of have fun, and sometimes I'll do things that aren't necessarily the most optimal move just because, hey, this guy pissed me off. No, I'm not going to make peace with him. Even though that's maybe the best thing to do, I'm not going to do it. So everybody has their own style to it. But one thing that I seem to do that I pay attention to a lot, and as you can see here, as Croatia, where I'm at right now, I've done pretty well, but there's definitely some pretty dangerous, Byzantine is my biggest factor. Holy Roman Empire, I've pretty much made friends with most of the game, so I don't really have to worry about them too often. But Byzantine we're right on the edge of it. But the biggest thing you really have to worry about is more internally. And this is a tip I give a lot of people who ask because they say, oh, I was playing this game as such and such, and man, I got in about 50 years, and then my king died, and everything fell apart, and I couldn't do anything. And one of the biggest tips I always give people is pay attention to your vassals. Keep your vassals happy. And a lot of times it's even worth throwing money at. And I know some people, when they watch my LP, they even get a little annoyed because I waste a lot of money trying to keep my vassals happy. The way you figure this out is if you click on your king and you come in here and you click on vassals, you can sort by clicking on the opinion tab here. If they're in the green, then that means they like you and you're going to be receiving the tax income. So this also helps in regards to the money that you're getting from them and from their counties, etc., etc. However, if they're in the red, that means not only are you not getting the yearly income from them, but it also means it's an avenue to trouble. If somebody doesn't like you, they're eventually going to either start a rebellion, try an assassination attempt either at you or your heir. So something is going to happen. At least the chances are increased. So if you can keep everybody in the green, then generally your games you'll find that not as much bad things happen. And I think a lot of people can attest to that who have watched my entire LP, is that they always see me constantly coming in here, especially right after my king dies and a new heir comes in. The very first thing I start doing is I start going into the vassals and start trying to appease them. And that's whether by giving titles. There's several ways that you can do that. The first, and I'll show you here, like this guy is the only guy who's kind of mad at me right now. There's a couple ways you can try to improve your opinion. One is you can send him money. Now, in this case, I can't send him any money to increase opinion any further because I've already done it in the past, and there's kind of a time period of, you can't just keep throwing money and throwing money and throwing money at a guy to make him like you all the time, which doesn't make any sense because it would work with me. But you can generally only do it once, and then I'm not really sure what the timetable is. I don't think it even says here. Nah, it doesn't really say. But it seems like after a certain amount of time, maybe a year or two, then you can maybe do it again. But it usually takes a little while. And that will generally increase your opinion. The second way you can do it is you can do it by awarding honorary titles. Now right now I can't show you that because I think I have all my titles actually handed out. But generally those honorary titles will increase opinion by 10 or 15 typically. So if you have somebody who's pretty close, you can usually kind of just get them over the edge with that. And that's a little bit of a longer lasting effect typically than the money. However, you're limited and you don't have as many of them. The other way you can increase it is to grant landed titles. So if you're in a situation where you're constantly taking new areas and new counties, and you have, a cousin or a son or a brother that's, really deep in the red and giving you a hard time, sometimes this is the easiest way, is to give them a title, a landed title. Typically, you want to give them a county. You can give a duchy if you're over the limit, but which I may actually be with my guy, but that's beside the point. But typically you can give a county. So like for instance, I'm not going to do it, but this would show you right here is that if I gave him this county, it would increase his opinion by 40. So he would be well into the green if I was to do that. Now I don't want to do that because if I give up that county, then I'm going to lose income, and I'm perfect at my domain size right now, 5 of 5. So I really don't want to do that at this point. The other thing you can do is you can always look and see what the things are that the person is upset at you about, and sometimes you can just look at it and say, well, I don't need to do anything because this is going to fall off after a amount of a time. So you can look here and it says I have too many duchies. So right now I do have an issue where I have too many duchies, and I think I need to give one of those duchies of Venice, and I didn't do it on my last episode because I had a heir change. This duchy of Venice I actually just need to give to my heir. So actually I'll just go ahead and do that on this particular video so you can kind of see the actual effect of it. My heir here is Ulfhedgen, Prince Ulfhedgen, and if I go ahead and go into here and grant him a landed title of Venice, because he already has he's the Count of Venice. So giving him the duchy is fine. He's going to be my heir anyway. So if we go ahead and let the time run for a minute or two here, just for a couple days, and we'll pause it again. If I go back in here and look at my vassals again now, you will notice that he is no longer in the red. He is in the green now. We took care of it just by getting rid of that duchy. Now you can see some of the other things. He doesn't... I have a -6 for short reign, so just playing the game for a couple more years will get rid of that. He doesn't like the feudal tax. He doesn't like that I'm a foreigner, title claimant, and ambitious. So that gives a big hit right there. So, and you can see the send gift act, so you can see the +65 because I've already sent him a gift previously. So a big part of the game for me anyway is if you want to try to be successful in the game and try to be able to expand and get new areas and conquer new countries and counties and expand and have your kings live longer than 5 years because they keep getting assassinated, usually the easiest way to do that is to keep your vassals in the green. If you keep your vassals in the green, typically it will make a lot of other things a lot easier. Then you can focus more on issues like your training and your infrastructure and, trying to stay friendly with Holy Roman Empire while you plot against the Byzantine Empire, for instance. So that's kind of a quick tip there. As you can see here, she doesn't like me too well because I believe because she desires the kingdom of Croatia, which will never happen. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Again, this was just a follow-up episode to kind of touch base, again, to say thank you to everyone for the great feedback on the tutorial series. It's greatly appreciated. Please continue to send any friends. If you ever have any friends who, see you playing CK2 and say, oh man, that game just looks too complicated, I don't think I can play it, send it in my series. Tell them to watch all 8 episodes, and by the time they get done watching these 8 episodes, they should be confident enough to be able to play the game, and then at that point they'll be hooked. And I know that happens to a lot of people, and it's awesome because this is a great genre of games, and as many people as we can get playing these sort of games, the better. This is a dying type of game. You don't see enough of them anymore, and Crusader Kings 2 is by far, in my opinion, the best strategy game as far as a turn-based strategy game goes that I have ever played. Just the richness of the story that you can get while playing it, and the characters and the options, it all plays together very, very well. And I'm glad if I have only helped 50 people to be able to enjoy this game and learn how to play it, then that is incredible. And again, it's greatly appreciated. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, send your friends to it, to the series in particular, and let's get more people playing CK2. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for joining me in the tavern, and I will see you guys next time.